And at some point, about 10 years ago, excuse me, a film crossed my desk, and I was asked to consult on possible US distribution for it. It was a film that was made in Mongolia, and it was called State of Dogs. And it was it dealt with this idea that in Mongolia, among the nomadic people, there's a belief that the next incarnation for their dogs will be as humans, as people. And it was a very beautiful film, and I really enjoyed watching it, but I didn't get involved with it for a number of reasons. But the idea of it stuck with me because I thought, you know, wouldn't we all want to see our dogs again? I mean, but in a human form so that we could talk to them and maybe express ourselves and hear what they had to say. I thought, God, one day I think I'm going to do something with that. But I had no idea what. So fast forward, about 3 years ago, when I was living in Seattle, I was at the Seattle Arts and Lectures series, which is this big reading series. They do it in the Symphony Hall. So there's 2,500, 3,000 attendees there, big audience. And the poet Billy Collins was reading. I don't know if any of you are familiar with his work. He was the poet laureate a few years ago. He's really a great poet, very entertaining, very funny. He's kind of like a really tall Bob Newhart. Okay, anyone who just laughed is old. Because I promise you, young people don't get that reference. I'm old, don't worry. Suzanne Plachette, remember? Yeah. All right. So he's like a really tall Bob Newhart, and he's this poet, and he's very, very funny. And so he was reading a poem of his called The Revenant, which means words from the dead. And so it's told from the point of view of a dog who's recently been euthanized. So it's being told from doggy heaven. And the first line of the poem is this. I am the dog you put to sleep, as you like to call the needle of oblivion. Come back to tell you this simple thing. I never liked you. It's a hysterical poem. I really highly recommend you reading it. It's in the collection called The Trouble with Poetry, which I'm sure they probably have a copy of here on the shelves. It's very funny, and it's got this, this criticisms from this dog, and of course there's a twist in it, and it ends very poignantly. So it's a moving story, but it's got a great deal of humor in it, and this really sarcastic, biting, observant dog voice. And when I was listening to Billy Collins read it, and in this big auditorium where everyone was just laughing hysterically, a light bulb went off in my head, and I said, you know what? I can tell the story about a dog being reincarnated as a person, but I have to tell it from the dog's point of view. So the voice of Enzo then was born. And this was in the summer of 2006. So at the time, I was writing a different book. I was working on a whole different thing, and I was about halfway through it, and I was struggling with it mightily. I kept on getting to a certain point, and then getting knocked down and having to tear the whole thing apart and redo it. It was getting very frustrating for me. And then I had this idea for the dog book. Now, at the time, I was touring a lot for my previous novel, my last novel, How Evan Broke His Head and Other Secrets, which is available in paperback at all fine independent bookstores. I was doing a lot of work in the Northwest, going to booksellers and doing a lot of readings and stuff. And I would go away for 2, 3, 4 days at a time and do readings and then come back. One day, I was going away for one of these little mini tours, and my wife said to me, she said, I just want to know, well, you go away on these book tours and you do your events in the night and everything, but what do you do all day? I said, well, stuff. She's like, yeah, stuff, but I think you go see movies all day. And I'm here taking care of the kids and everything, and so could you please explain to me what you're doing? And I had to confess, she had it exactly right. I would wake up late, I would go for a jog, I would have a light lunch, I'd go see a movie in the afternoon at the local Cineplex, and then I'd do my evening reading. It was a cushy job, I'm telling you, I liked it. That's when she started giving me page counts. She said, if you're going to go on a trip, I need to see pages when you get back, because you need to be writing, you need to be working. All right, at this point I have to introduce you to my wife. I guess I've already kind of exposed her, so I have to introduce you to her. She's not here. I have to introduce you in concept to my wife. As any writer will tell you, your spouse, your partner, is the most important connection you can have. It's someone who is your first reader, it's your best critic, it's your most honest reader and critic, someone who can support you in those dark times when nothing is going right, and someone who can share the joy when everything is going well. My wife is that and more. I dare say my wife is my muse. She inspires me to great things. But just so it's really clear here, she's not like a muse like you would see in like Michelangelo painting, you know, with like the white flowing gowns and the little golden wreath and like hovering in the air with the wings and all that, and like and sprinkling pixie dust on my keyboard while I write. No, if you want to think of my wife as a muse, you really have to go. You got to go kind of dark. You got to go like black leather S&M dominatrix muse. You know, get in that room and don't come out until you have pages, like that kind of thing. She's really good at that. So, in the summer of 2006, I told you I was struggling with this book that I was writing, but I had this idea for the dog book, and I was going to go down to Central Oregon to do some readings. I was going to be gone for about 4 or 5 days. And I said to my wife, I'm going down to do this, and I said, I want to start this dog book. And she said what any dominatrix muse would say. She said, no. No, you can't. She said, you're going to finish the book that you're working on and sell it, and then you're going to write your dog book. And that's the way it is. And so I begged and I pleaded, and she ended up relenting and letting me. She said, okay, fine. You want to go start the dog book? Start the dog book. But I want to see 40 pages when you get back. Which is a kind of a tall order, I have to say. But I wanted to do it, so I went down to Central Oregon and I checked into the Riverside Lodge in Bend, and I opened up my laptop and I said, okay, doggy, we've got to get to work. And the first sentence came to me, gestures are all that I have, sometimes they must be grand in nature. And I thought, you know what? I think I got something here. So I wrote and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. And I wrote and I wrote, and I ended up finishing the first draft of this book in 4 months. So I finished it by November. I was very excited about it. I'd never written that fast before, so I figured there must be something magic going on here. I sent it off to my agent in New York, and I waited patiently for his call. Do you know how a writer waits for the agent to call? Okay, I have a dog at home, Comet. Comet's favorite food is pancakes. Comet loves pancakes. And every Sunday we have pancake. Sunday is pancake day in our house. And I cook the pancakes and I put them on the cooling rack there on the counter there while the kids are eating them and whatever else. And they're sitting there. And Comet sits underneath that cooling rack staring up at the pancakes. So hard and with such determination, I know she's convinced if she stares long enough and hard enough, one of those pancakes may fly off the rack and into her mouth. It's quite possible it could happen. That's how a writer stares at his phone when waiting to hear from his agent. So you get the picture. I'm waiting patiently. He's not calling. Finally, I know this specifically. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving in 2006. I know this because I was going to Whole Foods to pick up my Thanksgiving turkey. I do all the cooking in the house. I was going to get all the Thanksgiving stuff. And my in-laws were coming into town for a great big Thanksgiving dinner. It was going to be a big special event, and I was going to pick up all the stuff. And my cell phone rang outside Whole Foods. I answered it, and it was my agent. And I said, oh, this is perfect. Because it's right before Thanksgiving. We're giving thanks, right? In-laws are coming in. They're going to hear how brilliant I am. It's going to be great. And I said to my agent, what do you think? And he said to me, it's narrated by a dog. Which, by the way, was something I knew. I said, yes, I understand that, but what did you think of the book? Did you like it? It was good, right? And he said to me, I can't sell a book narrated by a dog. No one will buy a book narrated by a dog. No one will read a book narrated by a dog. It's not even narrated by a dog. It's narrated by an author pretending to be a dog.